Just want to make sure the sound is working for today. So please let me know that you're able to hear me and we will get started. Okay, thank you so much. So welcome, good morning. Thank you for joining me today. I know we start classes next week, so I appreciate some of the time that you give or are willing to share with me today in order to prepare for next week, the start of next week. So today I'm really going to be focusing on Google Meet as an instructional tool. So basically, my name is Allison Blackwell. I'm an instructional computing analyst at the MOC Regional Information Center. I work with several school districts assisting implementing technology into the classroom. So today I'm going to share a little bit about the setup of Google Meet, but then really focus in ways that you can use it instructionally, whether you're going remote or in a hybrid environment, so forth and so on. Please make sure, I know we have a few people just joining us, please make sure to leave your name in the chat so that we have it for attendance purposes for today. So thank you very much for doing that. Today's session will be recorded, so we will have it up on our YouTube channel so you can access it after today or want to share it with any of your colleagues. So if you have any questions throughout this time, please, please, please use the chat feature. The lovely Chris Schaefer is on here helping me moderate for today. So please make sure that you put your questions in there. He will try to answer as best as possible, but if not, I will definitely answer what I can. So without further ado, let's get started. So, all right, in the chat, if you could write or type in what is some of your experience with Google Meet. I know during the closure, we had kind of like that crash course into Google Meet. So many people, it was their first time utilizing the product. Some of you might have had a limited experience, but throughout the closure in the springtime, are many ways in which teachers took advantage of Google Meet. So whether it was for like team meetings or building level meetings, but also with their students having a specific schedule time or meeting one-to-one, please share how you have used that in the comments. This way we can all build from each other. We all learn from one another, so everyone uses the product in many different ways, but we might be able to find some guidance outside of that. So please feel free, add to the chat exactly what your experience is, the good, the bad, the ugly, what things you really liked about it, and drop it in the chat for me, okay? And we'll touch base about some of those comments as we move forward. So as we're getting started, I really had to put up this quote. I thought this was hysterical. I saw this on Instagram from Two Sharp Pencils, and it basically says, I'm pretty sure put yourself on mute is going to be a popular phrase with the classrooms reopening. I know so many of us consistently had to remind our students to mute themselves because we hate the chatter, and especially not only with our students, our colleagues, like let's have some time to chat and mute yourself when you are not talking so we don't have the crinkling of paper, someone munching on something in the background. This is one of the things where I feel like when we go in, if you are doing in-person instruction, where we are going to be like, okay, mute your microphone versus just saying, it's time to settle down. So consider that as we're moving forward, but pretend, you know, our kids don't all have microphones or mute buttons. We wish they did. So this is kind of one of those things that we really need to make sure that we remind our students, especially when using Google Meet. Let's see. Okay, awesome. Just checking some of the comments. I see a lot of meetings with administrators, some with the kids. Great. Oh, Angie, I love how you did presentations. Love it. Yes, our students can present in Google Meet. So that's a fabulous feature to use. It's a great way for them to show their communication skills, their presentation skills, the whole 9 yards. They really get to, it's not just you presenting to the students in Google Meet, but students can present as well. So office hours, definitely. Office hours was definitely another thing that many of our teachers use. One-on-one instructional time. Basically, using Google Meet for whole class instruction can be a little difficult. And when we're trying to make those personal connections with our students, that one-to-one time is really beneficial. So think about utilizing that, and I'll touch a little bit more about that later on in this webinar. Okay, so I just want to highlight just a basic overview for Google Meet if you have not used it before. Matt Miller, one of the most amazing techie people out there, he is the author of Ditch That Textbook. He even came out with a few other books this summer that I highly suggest for you to check out. But he has a wonderful infographic that breaks down each component of Google Meet, okay? And when you go to this, and I will be sharing this presentation with all of you after the webinar today, so don't feel like you have to write down links or write down names or anything. You will have it all. So all the links or all the hyperlinks are on each of the images that I show you. So if you ever want to go to this one, if you click on it, you'll be able to access that. So on here, I have this Ditch That Textbook basic overview for the infographic. So on a Google Meet, once you create it, of course, you go to meet.google.com. And from here, there are a few items I just want to highlight. And like I said, I'm not going to really do a how-to for Google Meet. We're going to focus on that integration component. But in this case, when you first join your Google Meet, you'll be able to see all of the individuals in front of you. But there are different controls throughout. So on the bottom left, that's where you get your meeting details. So that's the URL that you can share. You can get the call-in number, everything all together, and then you could just copy and share it with other individuals. In the middle, those are our basic controls. So you have your microphone, click to mute, unclick to mute, or click again to unmute. The little phone icon, which allows you to leave the call, and then of course the camera icon that allows for you to have your camera on or off. On the bottom right, we then have the turn on closed captioning. This is great because this allows for our students to be able to see exactly on the screen the speech to text. So as we were talking in Google Meet, it starts to take all of that, put it in text form, and does the closed captioning at the bottom. So I try to think about for our students that have a difficult time maybe understanding what we are saying, they can kind of see it, as well as those have a difficult time understanding. It's right there for them. From here, you do have the Present Now button, and you can present in multiple facets. So you can present just a tab, you can present a full screen, you can do just a window. It's up to you as to what you'd like to do for that. Then on the bottom right, we have the 3 dots. The 3 dots gives us a few different options. So we do have the ability to record any of our meetings. And once you record a meeting, it goes directly to your Google Drive into a Google Meet folder. Or Meet recordings, I should say, folder. So this way you can go, you can share it. So if you are recording a lesson, want students to access it in classroom afterwards, you can then record it and put it in there. No big deal. One of my favorite things is that change layout area. So Google did make some updates where you can have that tile view, a spotlight view, which is mainly on the person talking, and then a few other options as well. You can also make it go full screen. Once again, the closed captioning. There is a setting component, so if you need to change your microphone or your web camera, if you have multiple things set up, you can do so, as well as for the audio button. And then up at the top right, this little icon here, that's where you can see a list of all of your participants. So this is also the place where you can mute those individuals, you can remove them from your class, but you have that nice list right there for you. And then from there on the right-hand side, that's where your chat feature is. And this is where you can have students put in their questions, you can add in links to some of the materials you're talking about, so forth and so on. So this is a great place to check out. But like I said, he has a wonderful infographic, which you'll receive after this. Just click on the link and that will bring it to you. So when you click on any of these components, it gives you more detailed information and a little tutorial of how to use it. So Google loves to make updates, and there are quite a few updates that are coming up this fall. And some of them actually just yesterday, it was announced that Google will be launching the ability to moderate the chat and presentation of participants. So meaning if you do not want student A or B to be chatting because you know they're chatty Cathy's or they abuse the privilege a little too much, you can turn that feature off for them or enable it for those that you want it for. Same thing with presenting. You can turn it off for students to present so that this way they aren't presenting their screen. So that is a feature that was just launched yesterday, but possibly it could take up to 15 days for it to show up. So if you go in, you're like, I don't see it, just wait. It takes some time in order for things to populate in there. But some of the newer features that are out there also depends upon what type of Google access your district has. So basically with the general Google EDU, we have the ability in the fall, once they make these changes, students will be able to raise their hand. So they'll have an icon in order to indicate that they have a question and it will pop up on your screen. There'll also be an increase for the tile view. Tile view is awesome. It's kind of like that whole Brady Bunch mode as to what I like to call it, where you can see each and every participant. So they are upping that from, I believe it was like 16 or 17 to now 49 individuals that you can see all in one area. And then, of course, they're going to be adding additional closed captioning in additional languages so that if it needs to be in Spanish or French or whatever language that a student might have for their primary needs, they can put on the closed captioning for that time frame or for that language. Now, if your district has Google Enterprise, which is something that you have to purchase into, there will be some additional features as well, such as track attendance, breakout rooms, Q&A, and then, of course, a polling tool. Now, some of those features you can still do in Google Classroom right now, utilizing other tools or even your G Suite tools so that you don't have to rely on it within Google Meet itself. So I will be showing you a few different ways in which you can access those type of items in Google. And just as a reminder that September 30th, the recording feature will go away for EDU subscribers. However, I just heard that they might be changing this, so don't get your hopes up too much just yet. They'll probably be limiting it a little bit, but Google will be announcing that hopefully soon as to what's going on. But we all would love some of these features. I know some of the options, such as the collaborative whiteboard space, they're actually basically just integrating Google Jamboard in there. And that's something that you could set up separately elsewhere. It doesn't have to be directly into the Google Meet area. The blurring out backgrounds would be awesome. And I hope they kind of make that available for our EDU customers. But you never know as to what's going to happen. So be on the lookout. Google loves to make updates throughout. Don't be shocked if all of a sudden when you log into Meet, there's a new feature available. So always test things out, see how things are going, but don't be shocked if you see another little icon pop up and you're like, what is that? Google just likes to make updates. And what I love is that Google really listens to us. So as educators, any feedback that we give them, they really try to make sure that they bring back into any updates that are coming out. So setting up a Google Meet can be done in so many different ways. So of course you can go to meet.google.com in order to generate a meeting on the fly. But my number one thing I like to share with teachers is to use the Google Classroom Google Meet integration. As I mentioned before, with all of this, you will get this presentation. So all the links I have here kind of guide you through how to do each one. But the reason why I like the Google Classroom Google Meet integration is because it limits it so that you have to be in the room in order for the students to join. So basically, you can run a meeting, maybe you're 5 minutes late, none of the kids can enter the room till you are there. So I love that feature. As well as at the end of it, you do need to make sure all of your kids are off of there, and then you can close out the meeting and no one else can re-enter. So I like that feature the most, only because it makes it super easy to share it out. The link shows up in your classroom, and it's less clicking for your students to access. So another way is doing the nickname. So when you go to meet.google.com, you'll see that you have join or start a meeting. When you open that up, it will ask you for a code or a nickname. You can create a nickname on the fly. What I like to do is that sometimes, especially when I have a teacher asking me if we can meet just real quick about something. I'll tell them, hey, go to Meet and type in this code real quick. And it's right there. I don't have to schedule anything. I can kind of do it on the fly. And what's nice about this, and to keep in mind, is that that nickname is only for your school domain. So meaning if I set something up in my Mount Markham account as Blackwell, I am now the sole owner of that name of Blackwell. So I see two of my Mount Markham teachers are on here. So if Sarah wanted to go in and type in Blackwell, she's not going to be able to use that and start a meeting without me. So the first person to use that name, they will be able to access. This is something where the teachers can only set it up, not the students. So nickname is perfect for on the fly, and you can also control as to who comes in. The next feature, which many of us were doing at the start of the closure, is the calendar option. This is nice if you're using the Google Calendar overall to kind of organize your day and your life in general. You can create a Google Meet right within there. So once you create an event, there's a little Google Meet option, and you just click that, and anyone that you add to that meeting will be able to see that same link and be able to access it. So really like that feature as well. And then, of course, Google just launched the whole Gmail Google Meet integration. And basically, when you log into Gmail, there's a little Google Meet option down at the bottom left. So you just click that, and then you can send out the code to your colleagues or students right through Gmail. And as I mentioned before, all you have to do is click on each of these links, and it'll bring you to a little tutorial of how to use each option. So I just wanted to highlight, since I said the Google Meet integration, Google Classroom is my favorite. When you go to Google Classroom, you open up your class. Up at the top right-hand corner, there's a little settings wheel. We're going to click that. And then underneath your general settings, you'll see that you have this Generate Meet link. Just turn that on. This will generate a link that will appear in the header of your Google Classroom. So just like how we have the code coming up, students are now going to be able to see that Google Meet link. So all they have to do is click on that link. So if we say, hey guys, we're meeting at 9 a.m. every day, go to our Meet link. They just have to go to the header, and it's right there. If your students are accessing this on a mobile device, such as an iPad, a tablet, a smartphone, the icon kind of looks like this up at the top right of their classroom. So kids kind of get confused when they see that. They don't see the full link in the mobile application version. So they do need to click on the little icon there. But for you as a teacher, you can leave this link on or off however you see fit. So that way, if you want to leave it up there for your students, you can. If you want to set it up, but you don't want the kids to see it right away, you can always hide it from your students' view. And that's in the setting component where it says visible to students. So just make sure it's turned on when you do tell them to go click on the link. But another reason why I like this is that if you are teaching multiple sections of a class and you want to share that same URL or the same Google Meet link with your other sections, turn this on for just one and then share it out with everyone. So if we have to do remote learning at one point, and I want my second, third, and eighth period classes all on the same Meet together, I can just generate my Meet link in one and share it in the other classrooms so that this way they can access it. I'm sorry, I'm at a school today, so we hear the bells in the background. So moving forward, as you join a Google Meet and start utilizing Google Meets with your students, it's really important to set expectations for them so they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Some of this we kind of like, it's kind of obvious, but reminding students is always helpful. So for example, reminding them that they need a quiet location, such as if they're in a house full of other siblings, or mom and dad are both working from home as well, they can go into another room and be able to access their Meet. Another item is have them use their headphones. It really helps the students hone in on what's being said on their computer versus hearing all the background noise within their house if they're coming or if they're joining from a home location. Also, set those expectations. Let them know exactly what you plan on doing with them for the day and what you need them to do in order to participate. This way, they know exactly what's going on. You overall may want to use the chat or not use the chat. It all depends upon your teaching style. I usually like to recommend to teachers, let the kids put in their questions in the chat feature. That way you can moderate it a little bit. They can help each other out in that area, but set those clear expectations, such as the chat is only used for questions and answers. Please no side conversations, so you don't have a whole long list of just random thoughts coming through. Another thing, wait their turn. So it's very hard, and I know we all kind of need to manage this in general, but when one person is talking, we need to make sure that we are not interjecting all the time. Wait, give it like maybe 3 seconds and then start talking. So make sure to adjust wait time accordingly also with that. And then, of course, the number one thing I say is mute your microphone. I feel like regardless of grade level, the very first lesson is muting the microphone with your students. It just makes sense. Make sure that they know how to do it, because once again, we don't want that background noise. We don't want to hear someone munching on something as others are talking. So please always make sure to show them how to mute their microphones and unmute too. So some of the things I'll recommend, as I said before, mute the microphone, can't say it enough, but also pinning the participants. So for example, when your students are coming on here and you really want them to focus just on you, show them how to pin. And to do so, when you're in a Google Meet, you'll be able to see a little pin icon show up so that they are able to meet on there, okay, or to pin it so that they can't have other screens popping up. Meaning if student A starts talking, it's still going to be your face and no one else's. The same thing if you're presenting a screen. If you want them to hone in on that presentation or to see that video, please make sure you have them or show them how to pin that. This way they only see that. And then of course they can unpin if you're starting to open up with more of a dialogue discussion. And then of course, changing your screen layout is always great. So as I mentioned before, if you go down to the bottom right and go into your settings with the 3 dots, you have the ability to change your different layouts. So you have your tile view so you can see everyone in Brady Bunch mode, but then you have that spotlight view. And that's when I recommend to kind of use that when you're trying to really do an overall instruction. And you want students to focus either on a specific person or a presentation, and that's when you're going to want to pin them as well. And then definitely explain to students your expectations for the chat. This way you don't have some crazy mess going on in the chat room and you're not able to see it right away. Explain to them what's going on. And once that new feature comes out, that will be awesome. So you don't even have to worry about it altogether. But helpful reminders of when to use chat is always good. So one of the things I like to recommend, and we had said earlier, is setting up office hours. So when you go into Google Calendar, you can set up what are called appointment slots. Appointment slots allow for you to designate certain days and times of ranges in which you are available. So if you want it to go from 12 to 3, you can add in a time frame of that and then have it set for like 30-minute increments, so that this way students can sign up for 30 minutes at a time in here. Also within there, you can set up a Google Meet link, so that this way a Meet is also generated for that office hour as well. So the little tutorial that I have here kind of walks you through it. And you'll notice here it generates a new URL once you create office hours. So you just share that unique URL with your students, and they will be brought to the appointment calendar settings. Or the appointment calendar in order to sign up for timeframes with you. So as they go to it, you'll see there's the office hours. They are going to just fill in the information, and they will be able to receive or let you know exactly what they need assistance on. So is it review of homework, so forth and so on. It shows up on your calendar. It shows up on the student's calendar. And you'll see there, once you click on the actual event, it will show you the Meet link. So once again, this little tutorial will be right in the presentation for you to access to walk you through it. So as I had mentioned, Breakout Rooms is a feature that's coming to Google Meet this fall. And there are a few ways in which you can use your current G Suite of tools in order to kind of go around waiting for that update. It's not like Zoom where for this hack, it's not like Zoom where you can pop in and out and moderate a little bit easier. There is additional setup behind it and trusting your students. So of course, be setting clear expectations. But there are some ways in order to set up a breakout room without having that feature just yet. But one thing is, I really find that whenever I set up breakout rooms or participate in a session that's involving breakout rooms, that no one talks. No one does anything in it. And I feel like sometimes I'm the kind of person like, hey guys, let's go to it and let's try this. Well, the way to make sure that it's not just silence in those breakout rooms is to make sure that you have clear expectations and designated areas in which you, or designated talking points, designated writing areas, so that students are aware what you need them to do. So here are just a few ideas. When you're thinking about breakout rooms for your students, be mindful of how many kids you would like to have in each one. So for starting point, I think of when we want to do like a think, pair, share and just talk to a peer. You can set up individual Google Meets for each of the groups ahead of time. And for our think, pair, share, you may want to have it so that you only have the 2 students per group and they only have 2 minutes to chat. So this basically allows for them to get comfortable with the microphone, with the Google Meet tools on their own, and they understand how to kind of moderate each other on there. And it also kind of is a way to implement this if you want to start utilizing this strategy even more with your students. So start small. Let them do it 2 at a time and see what happens, but let them go for 2 minutes. And you can always set a timer so that this way they can see how much time they have. And then, of course, you have possibly introducing 4 students at a time, allowing them 4 minutes to talk, but also think about like when you're doing your think, pair, share, you can always have like 2 lower stake questions. So something super easy that they can definitely answer within that 2-minute time frame. But same thing with the 4 and 4. Instead of having additional questions, have 1 question so that this way it gives enough time for each of those individuals to talk and share. And then, of course, you can get bigger. So if we have up to 5 students, we may want to have 10 minutes in their room with a higher level question. And this gives them that ability even more in the Google Meet of how they can make sure that they're each giving time to chat to one another. Everyone's able to express their opinions. They can work together collaboratively, and it gets them comfortable using the programs that you're assigning them. I did pull this from Teresa Wills from her website. She has amazing resources besides just ways to do breakout rooms with Google Meets. But I highly suggest for you to check out her website. So I have here Clay Smith does an excellent job of showing how to create breakout rooms in Google Meet. So basically, he gives you full out instructions on how to either use a nickname or set up your Meet ahead of time in Calendar. And then you use a graphic like this to hyperlink to each one of these breakout rooms. So, the gray group's going to go here, the green group's going to go there, so forth and so on. You can even number them however you see fit. But when you click on this icon, you'll be able to, and I'll show you real quickly here. Clay does a great job. He has a video tutorial and even written out directions on how to utilize this and share it. So he does have a template for you to use, so that this way you can just take what he has and plug in your own information. Now, I saw this one posted on Twitter by Esther Park. I loved how she did this. So kind of similar to Clay's, where you set up Google Meet rooms ahead of time, and then you have each of those Google Meet rooms be for specific ideas. So one room could be where they're really seeking the support of the teacher, okay? Another one can be where they can all work collaboratively. They want to keep their microphone on. They want to talk with each other. This is where they can work together as a group on certain items. And then you have your quiet room. These are the people that might not be comfortable talking or using the audio. They just want to use the chat feature, which is fine too. So this is a great way for them to be working on a project or doing some research and sharing thoughts with one another as well. And then the quiet room. This is where you would set up an additional Google Meet so that students that want that quiet area, no distractions with microphones or the chat, and they can go in there and you can check on them and see how they are doing. So of course, possibly having their camera turned on so you can see if that they are in the room, but go in and check on them to make sure that they don't have any additional questions. So as a teacher, you could jump in and out of each of those rooms as well. And Esther does walk you through the process as to how to create all of this on here as well for setting each of those up. But it's awesome to utilize this. It's a great way to differentiate and to make sure the students are utilizing Google Meet as well as their instruction to what they specifically need assistance with, or could possibly even just do on their own without needing their peers or the teacher in order to do the work. So Esther does have a ton of other links as well, and let me just show you her website. She has all of these amazing templates that you can use for your classroom. So feel free to take a look there, and she basically allows for you to take anything and copy it. So, and to use on your own. But I love it when people share their templates. It's so much fun. So I don't know if anyone else is on that Slides Mania crazy train here, but I am definitely one of those people. Slidesmania.com offers a ton, and I mean a ton, of amazing Google Slides templates, backgrounds. You can even use them as PowerPoint presentations, the whole 9 yards. And Stephanie Michelle created this amazing virtual station rotation item here. So basically, it's a wonderful Google Slides presentation that you can hyperlink and set up yourself. So you include your Google Meet time on there for your meeting, and then you have all the other stations that you plan to do with your actual lesson. So you have your teacher-led station where they can additionally stay on for the remainder of the meet. But using the link icons here, you can go and generate that so that they're going to a specific Google Doc or Google Slides presentation that they need to access for that. And then you have your online station. So if you have specific ideas that you need them or specific tasks, you can link to your Google Classroom assignments. You can link to, if you need them to do an iExcel or a Castle Learning assignment, you can put that all there. And then, of course, the offline station. So some of those things like journal writing in a notebook or any sort of non-technical tasks that you're asking them to do that day that do not require the computer. They can go to the link there and see the actual results or or see exactly all of your expectations for that activity. And then, of course, an extension activity. And yes, she does have this laid out for you, but if you want to change it up a bit so you don't need the extension activity, delete it. That's what's great. You can get rid of half of this stuff. So if you don't like it, you don't need to use it. But I love how she set up this template because it's nice and clear and organized, and you start off your day with your Google Meet, and then the students can either stay on there or start working on these other different items, but still be in on the Meet. So what I would suggest is that if you're requiring your students to stay on when you're doing this, make sure they mute their microphone as they're going to like the online station and the offline station and the extension activity. So that way it makes it a little bit easier for moderation later on. So as you can see there, there's Slides Mania, but she has great links as well on there, or great ideas. So this other one I saw also on Twitter from a teacher that shared this out. This is using Prior Friend. So basically she had set up breakout rooms or Google Meet rooms for each group that she had. And she set clear expectations as to what she wanted her students to do. Now, this is kind of one of those low task type of activities. And when you're first trying to use breakouts with your students, or like to do the breakout rooms in Google Meet, try to keep things low stakes to start with. This makes it easier for you and for the students. So there's not so much pressure to make sure that they have to get done educational work on here. They're always making sure that they have the ability to to work on assignment. They get used to using the tools that you're requiring them. So in this case, they're getting used to using slides in a collaborative environment. So I love this one. The link to the activity, it will be in here. So basically each of the students, they put in their names in here, and then they add in each of their items. So they have to talk things through. So who's the tallest based on their conversation? Who has the most siblings? They have to add it in. And then they all have to add in the sum of their shoe size. There we go. But this is a lot of fun for them to use. Another option here that I saw once again on Twitter from Jason Spencer, he has a Jamboard activity. So if you're not familiar with Jamboard, I'll show you a little bit more in a little while. But this allows for you to create a digital whiteboard for your students, but also set up different frames. So in this case, he set up a frame for each individual group, and he set forth specific expectations. So person one, he basically gave each of the students, he told them what group they were in, as well as what person they were, if they were 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, and they have colors for each one. So when you go to add a sticky note to Jamboard, you can select specific colors. So this is requiring the student to make sure that they are utilizing that color. And then they're going to use the green sticky note if they are having questions. So that this way, when the teacher goes through to see how they're going with their instruction, they see that green sticky note, she knows, or he knows how that they need to go into that Google breakout room or in that meet room to meet with that group because they have additional questions. So the color coding really helps. It stands out to you. So whenever the teacher will see that green sticky note, she or he knows to go to that group to talk. All right, another one here is Shayna Raymond put together this great breakout room note taker. So as I mentioned earlier, we want to have a designated writing space for our students so that this way they are aware of what the clear expectations are. And in some of this, we need to make sure that we assign roles for our students, such as making sure someone's the note taker. Who's going to be the first one to talk? Who's going to be the reporter of all this? So when you come back to your room, who's going to share out what they learned? Who's going to be the timekeeper? So if you're giving them specific time frame to meet, who's going to make sure that they're on task and they're done with their activity at that time, as well as who's going to make sure that they are covering or everyone's getting a fair chance to talk. So those are some items. She has this great presentation put together, an awesome template. So you can just copy this and start using right away with your students. But one wonderful resource for you on there. Now, one thing I like to highlight is that we can take some of our discussion strategies that we use in the classroom into the digital environment. So I like to talk about the Spiderweb Discussion, and this is put together by Alexis Wiggins. She's the one that developed it, and it basically really highlights critical thinking, collaboration, problem solving, and of course, evaluating kind of strategies. And this can kind of be done almost at any grade level. You primarily see it at the high school level, but this is a great way to have a discussion conversation, but so students can monitor and the teacher can monitor what kind of input the students are giving into that conversation, and if it's valuable feedback within there. So in this presentation, it does link to a wonderful website that has a ton of tools for you. But usually to make a Spiderweb discussion work in the physical classroom, you would have the students either sit in a circle or a square kind of thing so they can all be facing each other. If we're using Google Meet, we're going to use that tile view so that this way they have the ability to see all of their peers on there. Now, as the kids are discussing the specific topic, the teacher is actually graphing out who starts where and who starts to piggyback and starts to move their pen based on the feedback that the kids are giving. So we have to have some sort of driving question. So like if your students are learning about Rome, why would you like Rome? Is it the architecture? Is it the history? What is it exactly? So have an overarching theme. It could be at any subject area. If you're discussing about certain items, focus in what exactly you want the students to show what they know, basically. So if we want them to discuss the setting or the themes of certain books, we can put that in there. If we're discussing outer space, what things about outer space could they bring to that conversation? So it is nice to have a rubric to go along with this so they know the clear expectations. You should be, at least interjecting at least 5 times. You should be using information from your textbook or from your notes or from specific websites you've researched, so forth and so on. Having that clear expectation is great. And when you click on this link here, it's going to bring you to this website. And in here, there are rubrics for elementary as well as secondary. They are Word documents, so you will have to put it in a Google Doc. But I love the rubrics that are built in there. And then, of course, give a discussion time frame. So Alexis recommends that for the elementary level, stick to about 10 minutes. That's plenty for them. And then for the high school students, you could do up to 30 minutes. Now, you may want to start small just to get the kids used to this, throw out a specific topic, see what happens. Make sure it's low stakes so that this way you guys can all get comfortable with the process and then start asking more higher level questions for them to discuss about. And then, of course, you're going to share the web with your students. So either you could do it on paper, hold it up, or use, like a document camera or your phone to connect with and share that with the students. Or I have this template I'm going to share with you where you would just go in, put in each student's name. And of course, if we're in the digital environment, this isn't really going to be what it looks like, but we're just trying to see who's piggybacking off of each other. So when we're in here, we can actually go to our line tool and go to Scribble. And now I can say, okay, that person starts, this person starts to talk, then this person, and show it. And then what I'm going to do is start to talk about this, with my students. Now, besides just doing the lines, you are going to make sure that you're leaving annotations. So you'll see that there's all these little letters. This could stand for anything that you want them to stand for. When you go to this website, they have a whole list of like almost 60 different items that you can choose from, but start small. So maybe an F for fact, if the student shares a fact that they got from like a textbook. Maybe if they're assisting to a point of view of their friends. So a friend shares something noteworthy, and then another friend shares something to piggyback off of it. And then, of course, if they're asking very valuable driving questions on top of this, that could be a Q. And then, of course, if they're getting distracted, something completely off task, that could be D. So each of those items can be different depending upon how you want to set it up. Also making like personal connections. So for like connections, you could do C, but you have that personal connection, the text connection, and you can kind of pinpoint that. So like the text could be CT or CP for personal connection. So those are just a few ideas for you to use. Now our chat feature, there are some great ways for you to add or to utilize that chat with your students, such as before basically putting in their questions, we can respond. I love having that open for if a student asks a question, other students can be the ones to answer it right on there. It doesn't always have to fall on that teacher. So maybe even selecting a few students to be the answer responders for that day, they can do that. You can also use emojis. Why not? Have them put in a thumbs up, thumbs down if they're not understanding things, so that this way we know what's going on and can check the status and understanding throughout there. Now, as we mentioned before, you can share your screen. So in Google Meet, you do have the ability to share your whole screen, a specific window, or even just a specific tab for your students. And make sure it's not just you sharing. As Angie had mentioned, she had her students share their presentations. Why not? It's a great way for them to show what they know and to share with their peers. Let them be the teachers too. So when you start your Google Meet, there are a few things that I want to make sure that you're aware of to help prepare for yourself. For me, you'll notice that I have my multiple tabs open. This allows for me to go in and out of some of the items I need to reference and within my presentation for that day. What I like to do is pin them down. The reason why I like to pin them down is so that I don't accidentally delete it. And it's the same thing for your students. Let's say you have a Google Doc and a Google Slides presentation or a website you need them to access for that lesson for the day. Let them know in Google Classroom what they need to access and tell them to pin it before the meet so that this way it's already there for them and they don't have to worry about it. So as they go in, they can right-click on top and then select unpin to get rid of it after the session. But I find pinning everything ahead of time really helps me get organized for my lesson or for any of my meetings that I may do. Now, for many of us, having everything on screen can be a little cumbersome. This teacher here shows you how to do a split screen on a Chromebook so that this way you have your Google Meet on one side and then you will have your presentation on another side. So this allows for you to share out that presentation but still be able to see the students in the Meet. I know that's a huge concern for many of us. I know this way shows you for a Chromebook, but Macs, PCs, they all have the different ways in which you can split your screen. So if you need that for a reference, this links directly out to that video. And then, of course, joining in with a second device. You don't have to do everything from your main device, such as your computer usually. You can join a Meet, again, with your same account. Doesn't have to be a different one. So for me, I could be signed into like 5 different devices with my Google account and still access the same Meet. So that this way, for instance, I want to set up this makeshift document camera. So many of us were very crafty during the closure. You know, we only had so many tools accessible to us. This person built their own document camera stand using their iPad. So this could also be done with your phone too. If you go to Pinterest, you'll find a ton of different ideas to how to access this. But you can join on that device as long as you have the Meet link. or the Meet application, put it on there, and connect. And your students will be able to see what you are writing on. So in this case, the student, or the teacher, I mean, had a checklist that they were kind of going over underneath, or assignment thing, and they were showing how to work on this, but they connected to that Google Meet using the document camera. So very clever ways of getting around certain things. So don't feel like if you are stuck with just your computer that you have to use that. Get a little crafty. If you have other devices around the house, utilize them. Why not? Okay, and then digital whiteboards can be a great thing. There are a few different ones that I'd like to recommend. So if you're trying to have students write out some problem solving, or to even do this collaboratively, there are a few great tools. So one being Jamboard, of course. I absolutely love Jamboard. I am a huge fan of Jamboard. This is just an example one that I put together from a webinar that I did. But basically, you'll see here you have this interactive whiteboard. You have your frames up on your top. So you could have a page for each individual group or certain students that you want to fill out. And then you have your tools on the left-hand side. So if you need to write, you go to the pen tool and you start writing and you start moving in. You have your sticky notes that you can add. You can add in images, of course, and other text messages or text boxes as well to add items through. But you can have designated spots for each of the students to let them know where they need to go. One thing I like to show here is using like the highlighter in order to have students like pay attention to certain like tough questions that are coming up in this. So I love signposts where you have specific questions that you want the students or be mindful of, or specific items, but you would just go in here into any of your pen tools and you will be able to select what type of pen you want, and you notice it highlights, or like it will tell you exactly what it is when you hover over it, and you can highlight the areas that you want them to do. Love that. But Jamboard's a great way to have a collaborative whiteboard with many of your students. So you can set one up directly from your Google Drive, but when you go to share, you would just share this out in Google Classroom, just like how you would a Google document or a presentation. Just make sure everyone's got access to it if you want them to collaborate in here. So excellent little idea. And then, of course, Canvas is one, and this is not the Canvas app like the LMS. This is just like a basic drawing. If you just go to canvasapps.chrome, it brings up a simple whiteboard, and that's it. You can put an image in the background if you need to, but if you're trying to have students show what they know really quickly, this is a great way for an individual way for them to use a virtual whiteboard. Okay, so those are two great products to use, completely free, both part of Google. And then, as I mentioned before, you can record your Google Meets. This is a great way if you're doing a lesson, you have quite a few students that are unable to attend, you can record it so that this way they can come back to it. So, I want to say thank you again for joining me today. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll stay on to make sure to answer them. If you haven't done so already, please make sure your name is in the chat for attendance purposes, and we will make sure you are all good to go. But thank you. Enjoy the start of your school year as best as possible, and good luck. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, Allison. I just wanted to let everybody know we're going to hang out in the chat for a few minutes. So if you do have questions, feel free to pose them there. Otherwise, good luck to you all as we start the new school year, and we'll be seeing you soon.